Liverpool striker hunt is getting messy. It is all over the place. But in the same time, Liverpool need one target and they want one target and they're adamant about it. And that bid for Ekitike for Newcastle changes everything. But Liverpool are also monitoring the Rodrygo situation on the side. We'll talk about, let's break it down, how Liverpool can actually get Alexander Isak. And will the player actually force a move? There is a talk that Newcastle can keep both Ekitike if they get him at Liverpool. There is a twist here because Liverpool actually also target Ekitike in the same time as they are targeting Isak. So what is going on between the two clubs and how this transfer saga is turning into one of the most exciting transfer sagas I have seen in years because it's all connected together. Let's talk about it. But before we go and talk about it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Of course, the like button is underneath the comment section. Looks like thumbs up underneath the video. Hit that like button and also leave a comment. And we'll ask questions during the show, so during the video. So stay with us. And let's actually break it down. As it is reported by David Ornstein, that Newcastle are working on a deal to sign Hugo Ékitike, who was a target for Liverpool for the longest time. And Liverpool, we know that they have Isak on their eyes. Like they want Isak to be their striker next season. But they also know that Newcastle, they don't want to sell. And we're not denying this. I'm not sitting here and telling you that Newcastle want to sell Isak or they will sell Isak. But also, this guy, Hugo Ékitike, for 75 million euros or closer to this, as it is reported, at 23 years old, that scored 22 goals for Frankfurt. He had 12 assists in his career at Frankfurt. He is someone that is coming to Newcastle. Probably he wants a little bit of like, will I get game time? Can I play? Will Isak be sold? Will I start some games? Where can I play? And he has to get some clarification. Of course, there is no player that is guaranteed to start in any club. Newcastle reportedly, as by David Ornstein, and as he said, that they want to have both Ekitike and Isak. But is that a viable option? Is that something that you think that Newcastle can do, keeping two players? Of course, Newcastle's ambition are high. They want to go far in the Champions League. They want to actually play Champions League again. They want to compete for the Champions League spot. So it makes a lot of sense after Callum Wilson left that Newcastle will keep both strikers. But is it viable to have Alexander Isak as a 150 million pound striker and have a 75 million euro striker on the bench as a backup? Or is it going to be Ekitike and another striker that is much cheaper than Ekitike? The guy is amazing. I'm not gonna, let's get it right. Ekitike is a great forward. He is someone that can play multiple roles at the club, can play as a supporting striker. He played with Omar Marmoush in a two-striker formation at Frankfurt. They were exchanging places. So maybe he can play with Isak on the same pitch. But that would change everything that Newcastle do. Newcastle play a 4-3-3 formation with Alexander Isak and two wingers. They will need to switch to a 4-4-2, especially after buying Elanga for that much money. So Elanga is going to be a starter. Gordon, who is worth about like 80 to 100 million pounds, is also another starter. They have Harvey Barnes. They have Jacob Murphy. So these wingers are really an inside forwards, both Elanga and Gordon. So they are not like in a 4-4-2 formation. And that is tactically, you break it down. Is Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali enough to occupy that midfield by themselves? Can Newcastle go next season and play 4-4-2, especially with them having the Livramento on the side and Lewis Sol, which is their very, very attacking fullback? It makes more sense that Newcastle will play 4-3-3. But David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano both have tweeted that Newcastle submitted an official bid for Ekitike. And negotiations are going underway. They are higher than 70 million euros. That is a lot of money for Newcastle. And now the questions have to be raised. What about the PSR? What about the financial situation of Newcastle, especially after spending 30 million on Trafford and 50 million on Elanga? Now, that's Newcastle, from Liverpool point of view, as it is reported that the narrative is changing on Isak for Liverpool. That is reported that Newcastle want them to play together. That is true. But does that make sense to have both of them? Financial implications. We know that Newcastle are trying to offer Isak 150 million, 150K a week to keep him at the club for the longest time. He scored 62 goals for Newcastle since he joined in 2022. Of course, the guy probably might want to compete and win trophies next season. Is Newcastle the right place for him? I'm not saying that Newcastle in the future will not win trophies. Newcastle already won the Carabao Cup, and they might compete actually if they get the right players at the club. Eddie Howe has proven that he's a winner. He can win cups with them. He played in the Champions League before, and they actually got knocked out by a scandal against PSG, if you remember that handball. But it is reported that the financial implications by Martin Hardy, he's a journalist for the Sunday Times, he said that the significant financial implications for the club, can Newcastle, which under scrutiny of PSR, keep both players, spend that much money, especially because Newcastle are still trying to sign a centre back. We need to remember that Newcastle have inquired about Mark Guehi, and they still want to spend the money for Mark Guehi. So they're keeping Gordon, they signed Elanga, they actually want to target Guehi, and they're getting Ekitike. Can they keep Isak? We know that Liverpool are going to submit a bid. How much is that bid? Probably Liverpool might submit a bid in the range of 120 to 130 with a lot of add-ons if they win the league or the Champions League. And maybe Alexander Isak will force a move. Maybe that the guy is his dream move, as it is reported, is to play for Liverpool. If that is his dream move, will he force a move to Liverpool? I believe that if you ask Isak today, would you want to move to Liverpool today to compete for the league and compete for the Champions League? Logically speaking, and I'm not speaking for him, I'm speaking if I'm Isak, I would say yes. I want to go and compete for the league. I want to go and win the league with Liverpool. I want to go and try to win the Champions League for Liverpool. Maybe he's going to compete for higher trophies, of course, with Liverpool than Newcastle. Yes, Newcastle and the Champions League, but we know that the chances of Newcastle winning the Champions League is slim, very slim. And Newcastle are not title contenders next season. So maybe Isak head will get turned. Also, David Ornstein has reported that Eddie Howe would like to keep both players at the club. But Gordon, Barnes, Elanga happy, to keep all of these players happy is so unclear. And the finances involved in keeping all of them is a stretch for Newcastle, especially from a PSR perspective. But he's saying also, he edited his tweet and said that it is an inviable problems to have, which means that they would love to have these problems. Because if you have a lot of players that are that good, maybe you can go on and make a lot of money from a lot of deals around. Maybe you can make more money from the Champions League. But also, we talk about from Isak point of view. Will the guy actually want to move? I believe that he would want to move to Liverpool. That is just my feeling. Of course, that if Liverpool will submit a bid, I believe that he might be able to actually, he will actually, his head would turn. Because when is Newcastle going to win the league? Is it next season? Is it the season after? Is it even after 3 years? The guy is 27 years old. How many years left at the top of his career? Maybe he got 3, 4 years. Maybe he would want to spend that at Liverpool. But for the implications, of course, for the Isak and Ekitike, let me just tell you something. Maybe Newcastle are trying to push Liverpool to submit a bid for Ekitike. That is something that maybe people didn't think about. That maybe Newcastle are trying to move Liverpool away from Isak by pushing them to submit a bid for Ekitike, because they informed Liverpool that Isak is not for sale. So maybe if they get Ekitike, Liverpool will be left with no forward on the market for them to sign. And they might end up with Mateta or Cisco, and they don't want to do this. Liverpool would like to sign Ekitike. He's the second on their picking order. So maybe Newcastle are playing a game here. You let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Or maybe Newcastle are preparing for Isak to leave. They are already signing a striker before anyone else comes in for Ekitike and submit a bid. So maybe Newcastle are preparing. There are two scenarios here. It's either Newcastle are submitting the bid to push Liverpool to bid, or Newcastle are preparing for actually Isak departure. Or the third option, which is, I don't think, as per David Ornstein and other journalists have stated, that they want to keep both. But financially, that would be very hard for them. I would like them to keep both because I want to see Newcastle do well. But is that a viable option for them? Is that something that you think Newcastle can do, especially under the scrutiny of PSR? Of course, Liverpool also. We got to talk about Liverpool financial issue. Because Liverpool, yes, they don't have any PSR problems, But will Liverpool go on and spend like 300 to 400 million this window? What if Nunes leaves, right? They sign Isak, they still need another striker because they will end up with one striker, which is Isak. And they will need a backup striker. And remember the Konate situation as well, which is what I wanted to say. The Guehi and Konate situation is so crucial to Liverpool because Liverpool need to act quickly to sign Mark Guehi before anyone comes and snatch him. Because if Konate is to leave, and Liverpool, I believe that they might put Konate on the market. And they might actually use Konate to get Rodrygo from Real Madrid. Because we know that Liverpool are still interested in Rodrygo as it is reported. They would want to make a move for Rodrygo if Luis Díaz leaves. And I believe that Liverpool will make this move once Rodrygo becomes available on the market. And Liverpool might be waiting for Rodrygo to be on the market, and then they're going to sit at the table with, of course, Bayern Munich and Barcelona to actually try to get the highest price for Diaz before going in with Rodrygo. And they have Konate, which is Konate is a card that Liverpool can pay in the Rodrygo situation because we know that Real Madrid would want a center back, especially after the shambles and what happened to them in the Club World Cup and being embarrassed. They were embarrassed many times this season by Barcelona. They were embarrassed by Arsenal, and they were embarrassed by PSG in the Club World Cup. So they need a defender like Konate who is strong and who is very good and who actually played with Trent before. So that right side will basically mimic the Liverpool right side that was very, very good with Konate and Trent. So maybe the relation between Konate and Trent will play a factor here. But also, if Liverpool get Isak and they get Guehi and they try to go for Rodrygo, that is close to 400 million. How much money can they raise from the sale of Luis Díaz and Darwin Núñez? Especially because, remember, they need another forward next season to be the backup for Isak. That is absolutely something that we need to think about. This situation between Isak, Ekitike, Liverpool, and Newcastle is so complicated that I think we'll have a lot of twists and turns in the coming days. I want to know what you guys think. How do you think this will go? Will Liverpool get Ekitike, or will Newcastle keep both? Or do you think that Newcastle are preparing for Isak's departure? And I want to know something from you. What if Liverpool get Isak? What happens to the league then? Can anyone compete with Liverpool? Because I don't believe that they can compete. With Isak, Wirtz, and Salah, and Van Dijk at the back, I don't think anyone can compete. I'm not saying that it's 0% as other people say, but I think Liverpool will be heavily favorites to win the Premier League next season. And I actually believe that they might be favorites to win the Champions League. I know there is the Barcelona, the PSG, but Liverpool will be so strong, to be honest, in the forward line, in the midfield with Wirtz, and also in the back line with the likes of Van Dijk staying and Alisson staying for one more year. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Hit that like button if you're still here. Subscribe to the channel, guys. If you are new, we are on the way to 40K. And I will see you guys in the next video.